Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Marketing Pivot Playbook Strategies for Success. My name is Michelle Eisenberg, and I am a program assistant here at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. So as you will see in the chat in a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So definitely make sure to check out those links and resources in the chat. And just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, let us know where you are dialing in from in the chat. We always love to connect. And second, we are going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event, as well as throughout the discussion. So please make sure to submit your questions for us in that Q&A box at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we will try our best to get to as many as possible. And of course, none of what we do could be possible at the center without all of the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, BMO, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, BPM, HubSpot for Startups, and Google Cloud. We are humbled by their contributions and hope you are grateful too. And so before we get started, we always like to launch a couple polls to step back, see how everyone is doing today. This first one is going to ask, how are you feeling? Fearful, anxious, surviving, or optimistic? And I'll give it just a couple moments for folks to submit a response here. Thank you, thank you. Awesome. All right, I'll give it one more moment. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to end this poll and share these results. All right, optimism coming up in the lead, but definitely have some feelings of surviving and anxiety as well. I'm super confident our conversation today may help with those feelings. So I'm going to stop sharing this poll and launch that second poll. What is keeping you up at night? Finance, sales, marketing, scale, pivot team, or surviving? And this one just tells us a little bit more about your current needs as an entrepreneur so we can make sure we are continuing to develop meaningful programs and resources for all of you. Awesome. I'll give it just one more moment. Awesome. We got folks from DC, Maryland, Texas. Welcome, welcome, everyone. All right, I'm going to end this poll and share these results. Wonderful. Marketing coming up in the lead, very fitting for our discussion today, but looks like we got finance, sales, scale, and pivot also very fitting. So gonna stop sharing this poll, and without any further delay, please join me in giving the warmest welcome to our special guest, Danielle Reid, CEO and founder at DR and Associates. Danielle, it is such a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. I am really excited to speak with each of you today. And if any of you, I tell people when I do these sessions, I am one of those people, if you have a question, put it in the chat so that I can see it. Because I tell people, do not be afraid. There's no such thing as a dumb question. And I am here as a resource to help you all and to help business owners just like you to become successful.
Awesome. Love it. Yes, absolutely. Definitely take advantage of the chat, that Q&A box, ask all the questions, and yeah, let's dive right in. So before, we kind of jump into the conversation, would love if you kind of took, like 30 or so seconds to just talk about who are you and the work that you do and what's brought you here.
Yeah, most definitely. So I've been working in marketing almost 20 years at this point. Worked my way up, worked for one of the biggest marketing agencies in the world and got a little tired of it. In doing so, I always tell people it's been really interesting because I was always behind the scenes working on marketing campaigns, right? And so I started to have a lot of entrepreneurs who came to me like, hey, this agency is telling me this. I'm trying to start my business. I need help. And I said, okay, at the time I was working at the Navy. I was in charge of marketing for the US Navy over recruitment. And I was like, okay, let me start kind of doing this on the side. But I took it full time myself, October the 1st, 2019, and I haven't looked back since. And so with VR and Associates, we serve not only entrepreneurs, but we also serve enterprises as well. But our goal is to really help our customers and our clients make money because so many times a lot of agencies put their own profits before the profits of their clients. And that's not how we operate. If our clients aren't successful, then we aren't successful. And so we help with everything from initial marketing strategy to people literally come to us and say, we're about to close our doors. We need help, and it's our job to figure out what we identify what's wrong and to help you for their long-term success.
Love it. Awesome. And super relevant to this conversation today, as we're talking about, pivoting your marketing strategies, some entrepreneurs, maybe struggling with that, is that kind of the right decision for my business? Or, should I kind of, just like, stay the course, maintain that consistency? That can be a really tough decision. And it sounds like that's something maybe you've helped, clients with. So just to jump right in, could you maybe talk about, some of the key indicators that signal a need to pivot a marketing strategy and how entrepreneurs can identify these early on?
So, first of all, the first thing I always like to ask people is, do you have a marketing strategy? A lot of times when we start our business, we don't have that footprint to say we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Or for a lot of us, and what we've seen is that a lot of businesses, especially entrepreneurs when they're first starting, they depend on social media. And even though, yes, social media is great, I started my career when, some of the older people in marketing was like, oh, social media will not be around the next 5 years. And I'm like, yeah, now it is. What do you have to say for it? A lot of companies, a lot of businesses became dependent on it, right? But depending on your business, that may not be where your target client is. And so one of the things to think about is that if you don't have a marketing strategy, you need to get one. And I don't mean when people say, okay, I just need a marketing strategy. So some people just immediately go to Fiverr, right? And Fiverr is a great resource when you're first starting. But when you're looking at long-term growth and success, you need someone who understands your industry and who understands your business and your vision. So that includes them taking time to ask you questions, right? Or even you, if you want to do it yourself and you say, okay, I'm going to sit down with myself, or I'm going to look at who's my target clients, who am I looking to? Even using your data that you have already on your clients if you've already been in business. So I tell people when I'm doing these sessions, I am old school. I still write things down in notebooks because for me, I like to reflect a lot. So one of the things I like to think about when you're looking at okay, what I've done is no longer working. It isn't getting me the impact that I need. Okay, well, we got to look at number one, and what have you done historically?
Yeah.
So looking at what you've done historically, and then looking at because for a lot of people, they never update their target customers because your customers' wants and what they're looking for may have changed. And it does change over time, right? Which is why you should do yearly and quarterly reflections. So I always tell people, anytime when you're looking at pivoting, you have to look at what's your goal with everything that you do with your business. So I always tell people there are three buckets that you have. It's you want to make sure that you have immersive content. You want to make sure that it's assistive and that it's impactful. And so if you take those three buckets and you apply it to everything you do with marketing, it will give you what you need to do. And that not only just means social media, that means traditional marketing as well. Because so many people assume, well, I have to be on social media. And I tell people, like for us, we don't even look at social media to actually get clients. We do it in other forms that people don't think about. And so what ends up happening is that you have to understand, especially if you're looking for a high, say for example, I'm going to use this. So I tell people you don't see Rolex doing social media ads. They market in other ways. So depending on who your target audience is, you need to start to look at what are their habits and where can I connect with them in the best place. So that may mean instead of you just focusing on Instagram and TikTok. You may need to focus on magazines. You may need to focus on print. You may need to focus on direct mail to meet those people where they are. But those are just a few little starting points, because I know we have a lot of questions to get through. And those are just a few starting points for you to look at: where are your customers and how do you best connect with them? What worked historically that isn't working now? And don't be afraid to try new things. I always tell people, never be afraid to try anything new. Then guess what? It could either work out or it teaches you a lesson.
Yes, yes, I love it. And this idea that, social media is it's just one of many channels that, entrepreneurs can potentially take advantage of to engage with their audience. And for the most part, it is, pretty low barrier to entry. So, finding those high impact leads or opportunities maybe elsewhere off of social media in other places, and some of those may be more traditional formats of so it's really specific to your business, and as entrepreneurs kind of think about this process. I love that you emphasized the need to listen to your customers and just go back to that kind of data that you're receiving from them, their insights, their challenges, where they spend their time, all of those kinds of things. So, my next question, I'm just kind of wondering, more deeply, what is the role of customer feedback in determining the potential direction that you can take a marketing pivot, and how can entrepreneurs effectively gather and interpret that feedback into data that supports that decision?
Yeah. Everything is online, right? Even though you may have a traditional, storefront or, brick and mortar, whatever the case may be, you're storing data on your customers somewhere, no matter if it's leads, warm leads, cold leads, if it's people who were potentially interested in your services but went elsewhere. That data is readily available for you. One of the things I always tell people, even if, like I have some people come in, they're like, oh, well, Danielle, they don't stay on my website long, right? And I'm like, well, okay, let's take a look at your website. Okay, it's not customer friendly. You aren't having that call to action. You don't have things easy for them to find, right? And so thinking back, even when you're leveraging that data, right, you may see where, okay, say it for example, if you have an e-commerce business, you can see what your average customer order is. You can see how many times they previously ordered. How are you rewarding those loyal customers? Are you rewarding them? Do you have a referral program? Do you have an affiliate program? These are all ways that you can build long-term growth, long-term profits. And what's happened is that a lot of people they have the data there, because most of your systems are going to have this data. Maybe it doesn't matter if you're on Shopify, WordPress, Wix, whatever. It's giving you all this customer data, but a lot of people don't know how to apply that data. So looking at, again, what are your goals with it, right? And you don't have to be, I tell people, you don't have to be a data analyst, trust me. But you looking at historically how things changed. Are people spending more money with you? Are they spending less money with you? For a lot of people, I always tell people, what's your abandoned cart rate if you're e-commerce, right? If you're looking at it, like, what's your closing rate if you're doing sales? Looking at, okay, even just reaching back out to some of those people to say, hey, why did you not choose us? Some people are scared to do that, right? Why not? Why not ask them what it was about your business, why they didn't purchase? Some people will be openly and respond. For some people, it may be your shipping price is too much if you're for e-commerce. I know, like for me, I don't want to pay $50 for shipping or $20, and what I'm buying is already $40 for an item. And I've seen that. And some people, so that again goes into a kind of the operations part of your business on what's your pricing structure. And things like that. But looking at how you really want to use that data and not being afraid. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, we're afraid of hearing bad things about our business because we're so protective of it. But those negative things can help you build. And that's what you need, whether if you feel like the information is good or bad, just gathering that data and being able to say, okay, if my abandoned cart rate is 90% or whatever the case may be, why aren't people coming back? At what point do they stop? things like that, so that you can say, okay, it is my shipping price. Let me look and see what my competitors are doing. Benchmarking to say, hey, do I have these things set up to, I literally work with some people where they have e-commerce websites, but they don't have abandoned cart reminders. So using the information that is out there, the tools that are out there really available for you, and applying it to your business, because it's there. But a lot of us, we get so caught up in the day-to-day of our business that we don't look at leveraging the data the way that we should leverage it, or how it should better help us as a business owner.
Yes, you said so many points that I just, want to reemphasize. First, that the user experience and the customer journey are so intertwined with your marketing strategy, and that's really where you can, gather so much of that customer feedback on the user experience. And so, and also just, they will tell you exactly what they are thinking. And that experience, that feeling of wanting to protect your business, I know for so many entrepreneurs in the community is so real. But you're so right. It totally does, work towards the betterment of your business long term, and the impact that you could potentially create for those that you're looking to make a difference for. And so loved that you emphasize those points. And so I'm wondering, as entrepreneurs are kind of assessing this data and customer feedback, trying to make a decision about, whether to kind of stay the course or make a pivot. What are some of the, just with pivoting your strategies in general, what are some of the primary risks associated, that entrepreneurs should consider when pivoting a marketing strategy, and how might they be mitigated or avoided?
Yeah, I'm a big person on, because I've worked and I try to tell people it's a difference between a person who has really worked in marketing versus a person who, and this is no pun against people that do it, but there are a lot of people out there that call themselves marketing and brand coaches that are just teaching people get rich quick, make easy money tactics, right? And most of those tactics do not have long-term success. And then it's like, okay, you're trying to emphasize on, I need to make this lead magnet. I need to make all these things, right? And then when nothing works, you're like, oh, well, it's like people feel like they're a failure, right? And I tell people, when you're thinking about your pivoting, right? You always want to make sure that your goals are either, everything you do with marketing is about either awareness, consideration, or action every
Mhm.
single time. And you have to understand each task that you do, where does it fall under? Because some of them aren't each task. Like, say, for example, with a lot of, and transparency moment, like I tell people, our firm is not that active as we should be on our social media because we're busy working for our clients. And some people look at that as a bad thing. Our clients don't. But one of the things that we do is that on our posts, we always talk about awareness, because we want people to be aware of things that are happening around them. We want people to do marketing the right way. So I always tell people, when you're thinking about your pivot, you want to always make sure that you're preparing for the future. One of the things I always think about is those customer experiences. People pay for experiences. They pay for how you treat them. They look at, okay, I feel like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be if you're a service business or whatever the case may be. You may say, okay, I'm an event planner and I'm looking at planning this elaborate event and I want to charge a premium ticket price for it. It's going to all be about the experience. And so when you think about pivoting, you're thinking about the experience of your customer. You're thinking about what sets you apart from your competitors. You're thinking about, what am I providing as a business that's different from my competitors? And you're also looking at, where are my competitors lacking, where I can come scoop in and can fill that void. So when you're thinking about pivoting, the main thing a lot of people hear is, well, I don't want to lose money, right? And I tell people, when you're trying out anything, you're probably going to lose money, right? But if you do things the right way, if you leverage the data that you already have, if you looked at what's worked historically, and if you look at that customer experience, filling those voids, it's going to work out for you. Now, you may not see an immediate return on your investment. It's, again, we're looking at long-term success. So that means measuring over a 3-month 3 month, half year, a year over year. You have to think like, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, they measure things based on quarters and years. And for a lot of business owners, they tend to say, oh, it didn't work immediately. I've tried this for 1 week, it didn't work. And they give up right before that pivot point of them getting to where it should be, because you have to always give things time to see if it works. And we tend to be such a microwave society that we think, oh, it has to be quick. And don't get me wrong, some things will be really quick. But if you want things to be really quick and to have a major impact, that costs a lot of money, either in your time or you investing in something else. And so those are just a few things just to keep in mind when you're looking at that pivot, knowing that, okay, you're going to either do really good, because I'm that person, I like to think outside of the box with marketing. And it's paid off for when our clients, when we're telling them, hey, we're going to try something a little different. How do you not know if a new thing will work if you're afraid to try it? And so I always tell people perfection hinders progress. That's something that we have in our office. Sometimes just go for it. Listen and see. Again, if you know that you're the best at something, start putting it out there. Start and make sure when you're putting it out there that you're confident in what you're putting out, making sure that you believe in it and that it's something that can successfully connect with your customers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, love it. And so for entrepreneurs who maybe have, already kind of decided that a pivot for their marketing strategy is the right decision moving forward, and they're kind of trying to navigate that, just to kind of start off, I think something that a lot of entrepreneurs worry about with a pivot, many entrepreneurs have some degree of stakeholder engagement, whether that's investors, partners, advisors, whatever that may be. And so can you maybe talk about some of the best practices for communicating a marketing pivot to different stakeholder groups?
Mhm. Yeah, so it's funny because I'm that person on teams when I worked in corporate. I'd be like, okay, that seems good, but show me the data on how it's going to work, right? And I tell people, like, if I'm not going to spend money on it, I wouldn't sell it to a customer. And I think that's something that's very telling about how I approach marketing versus some other people. I think that number one, if you're stuck in a rut, right? Why would you keep trying to beat a dead horse? So something has to change. And it's kind of the same way that you would explain anything else. Hey, look, if we've been having flat sales, why not give this a chance? It's either going to do one or two things. If sales are already flat, why not take a chance on this? It's really about leveraging the data to show, and even, when you perform certain marketing tactics, right? Like say, for example, our agency is one of the only ones that has a more data-driven direct mail program, right? Where we leverage the data and our customers see a higher ROI than traditional direct mail, right? Our customers leverage that data with their decision makers within their organization, where we provide them with case studies depending on their industry, their location, things like that. So we compare household income size. We compare all these things because, of course, we have the data to do it. And we say, this is how your campaign will potentially go, right? So it's either one or two things. You're going to stay the same, or you're going to say, let's take a chance on this, and this could be your breakthrough moment. You have to look at it like, even when we work with, it doesn't matter what your industry is. I always tell people, look for that lane of opportunity, because I guarantee you that your larger competitors, it's something that they're missing out on. And if you pay attention, you can fill that void to say, hey, if our target, we're going to say, for example, if you're a real estate agent, right? You have so many real estate agents, they are wanting to go for, I want to get in a multi-million-dollar club, right? And so they're going after these people who I want that person who can afford $1 million home. I want this person who can get pre-approved for $750,000. Or you have people who, oh, I just want to work with first-time home buyers. But then you may say, well, hey, I looked in my area and nobody is focusing on these people who have growing families, who have the extra income and they're looking to upgrade to a bigger home, right? And it may be that person that's making, okay, together they're making $400,000 a year or whatever, but they've had kids, so now they need more space. You may say, well, hey, nobody's targeting them. This is going to be who I target now. And you just learn how to connect with them by understand, connecting with them, let them know I understand, because, you may say, well, hey, I was in that situation 5 years ago, or whatever the case may be. And guess what? Now you have a whole new lane that you created because you saw a void that none of your competitors were filling. And so those are the kind of ways you just kind of have to focus it on, is if, hey, sales are flat or whatever, let's try something new to see how it works. And it may not be where it's long term. You may say, we're going to try out this for 3 months. So we need this much set aside to try it. And then if it's successful, we expand it. That's usually how corporate does it. So you can try the exact same thing.
Hmm. Yes, yeah, what you're talking about is so important. And that's why competitive analysis is so critical for entrepreneurs at this early stage. And yeah, I couldn't have said it better. So, in kind of thinking about staying the course, really seeing the pivot through, um, a lot of entrepreneurs, in our community, have limited capacity, limited resources. And so how might they kind of think about allocating these resources when pivoting their marketing strategy to ensure maximum impact without overstretching their capabilities? Many of these entrepreneurs are solopreneurs wearing every hat, so it
Mhm.
can feel like a big undertaking for sure.
Um, so speaking from I am a true type A personality. You cannot do everything. And if you try to do everything, you are going to stretch yourself thin. Some people think it's about just I usually hear business owners say, well, the first thing I'm gonna do is hire a VA, virtual assistant. I'm like, okay, but what is that VA going to do for you? I've seen where some people, they usually go for like the cheapest thing they can find, but that person doesn't understand their business, because guess what? They have 50 other people that they're 50 other accounts that they're managing because of their low price point. And so I always tell people, one of the things to think about is, of course, I don't talk about me, I have notes written down. I always tell people, number one, you have to manage your time and what you are good with. If once you start to manage your time and basically look at like your day-to-day duties and what all you're doing, right? It may be where you may not need a VA. You may say, okay, the first thing I need is a financial person to help me because I'm not keeping things on track. You may say, well, I need a person who can really help me with operations because I'm not understanding, or I'm not able to keep track on all these other things I need to do. Or you may need policies and procedures put in place. You may need standard operating procedures so that when you do bring in an additional team member, whatever the case may be, you already have everything outlined. You may say, well, you know what? No, I need to find the right people. So I'm going to hire an HR consultant to help me find these people in person because I don't have the time to sit up and interview and hire and do background checks and all these other things on people. But I always tell people, when you do find that person, trust them, because the most painful thing that can happen is that you hire someone, you're paying them, but you don't trust them and you don't listen to them. And then when you don't trust them or you don't listen to them and things backfire when they're trying to tell you something or trying to do something a certain way and then it doesn't pan out for you, you can't blame them. You have to blame yourself. But a lot of people don't like to have accountability. So they're like, no, it's your fault. Well, no, you didn't listen. And so if you're going to hire people, I always tell people, don't hire someone and not listen to them. You have to find somebody that you can trust and who understands entrepreneurship. A lot of people, they immediately, and I hear a lot of coaches say, well, you should hire part-time employees. You should just do this. That doesn't mean that they're going to care as much about your business as you. They're now looking at you like a job, compared to if you hire another entrepreneur who specializes in something and they're actually good at what they do. They're going to look at you as, this is a potential case study where I can say I turned around this company. They're going to look at it like, this is an opportunity for me to use this as a really great example and to get more business. And so you just really have to take your time and don't be in a rush. Find, figure out where you need the most assistance and then the type of people to help you from that point. Because I tell people, I've heard people say, I've tried to hire like marketing people and they told me they couldn't help me because I didn't have an audience. And I'm like, what? They told you what? And I'm like, they're supposed to help you get an audience. So they're basically telling you, I can't help. They basically just told you that they really don't know marketing, because they didn't say, I'm going to help you get an audience. They said they can't work with you if you don't have one. And so things like that are very telling if you pay attention. to people. And I'm a big person on look for a person that actually has the experience to where you see yourself growing. If this person has never really worked like with managing like a $50 million budget or worked with multi-million dollar companies, how can they help you get there if they never had the experience in doing so?
Mhm.
They can't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think I love this point that you emphasized of, really being intentional with the kind of role that you're hiring. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be a general kind of virtual assistant or, something like that. Really taking the time to see where you have gaps in your business or where you as a leader have gaps. That's where that most valuable role could potentially fit in. And really just being intentional with that could make all the difference in a successful marketing pivot. So awesome. And don't forget, if you are in the audience and you have questions, make sure to drop it in that Q&A box at the bottom. Um, but yeah, just to continue, I think we've touched on this a little bit, but I think something, especially for entrepreneurs with businesses that maybe they've been around for a few years and they've maintained a consistent brand and they're looking to, pivot their marketing strategy or rebrand. And that really contributes to brand recognition. And so how can entrepreneurs really ensure that their marketing pivot aligns and continues to maintain the integrity of the original brand that the business is really built from?
Yeah. I would again, okay, so a good example is this, right? So I always like to use Sears as a great example. So everyone knew, or depending on your ages, everyone was familiar with Sears. Like, you went to Sears for appliances. That's what, when it was something, everybody went to Sears, right? And when Amazon was really coming up, some of the kind of younger interns were telling leadership, hey, it's this thing coming up called Amazon. We think they're going to put you out of business. And Sears like, nah, we're good. We're solidified. We got this, right? And we saw what happened. We saw it happen with Kmart. We've seen where these brands, because they didn't pivot, because they did not innovate, look at Toys R Us. I used to love Toys R Us as a child. I can't go to Toys R Us with my kids now, because it isn't out there because of their failure to pivot, their failure to innovate. It's all about, I always tell people, you have to look at, again, those opportunities that are out there. It's a book called The Innovation Handbook. I recommend that every business owner gets it. It literally talks about the future. Like it talks about recognizing these opportunities and that because 98% of our economy is digitalized, right? That means that people look for things to be easy. They look for convenience and they do not want to go through hoops to get to you. They do not want to go through hoops to find you. It's all about who's right here on their phone, right? So it's about being in their face, being present and letting them know that you're the best at what you do and building from your expertise, building from your knowledge and not being afraid to get out there. Like for example, even if you say, well, hey, digital isn't our thing, get out and network, get out and be a part of these community events so that you can go and connect with people, sponsor some of these community events. Don't be afraid to talk about what it is that you do and why historically you are better. I always tell people too, if you're seeing that your competitors are doing like direct mail and you're like, okay, well, I slacked off on doing direct mail. Now my competitors are doing it. You say, well, I'm going to do it bigger and better. You say, well, okay, I'm going to send out mailers. I'm going to also be in these magazines. I'm going to be everywhere in their face to where they remember it. Another thing to think about too is that I tell people, again, looking for those areas of opportunities, especially as a trusted and well-known brand, just knowing, hey, we're just looking to do things a little differently. So we want to connect with people a little differently. And that may mean, hey, we may need to start doing text message marketing. We may need to start doing ramp up our email marketing. There are so many different areas of opportunity that people, when they get stuck in something and they're like, oh, this has worked historically, they're afraid to try new things. They're afraid to innovate. And so it's really just being out there and figuring out how can you be impactful so that people keep you at top of mind. Just even thinking about Like I tell people, community impact is one of the best areas where a brand, no matter if you're new or if if you're a family-owned business, you've been doing this 100 years, those are areas to where people think about who's been there for them in the community. They think about who's been there at those community events, especially if you're in, depending on where you are, and if you're one of those tight-knit communities, right? People look at it like, hey, they're a part of our community. They've been here. We're going to keep them going. We're going to support them.
Totally, totally. And, you mentioned ease and convenience, earlier on. And I know that's something that so many of our entrepreneurs are looking for, in all parts of their lives and their business. And so, in thinking about that, are there any tools or technology that are supportive in making a marketing pivot successful, and what are some strategies or ways that entrepreneurs can kind of think about integrating technology into their marketing pivot strategy?
Yeah. So I'm gonna use my agency as an example. So one of the things that I know for me, I'm one of those people again, I'm a type A and I tend to over communicate. But I didn't want our emails to be bogged down because everyone here, I'm pretty sure, has worked in corporate where they've had somebody that was a micromanager or somebody who over communicated on emails, right? It's really hard for you to go through and search like a million emails to find one particular thing that you're looking for, to find that work request. Like I literally tell people, I literally get in a day maybe about 1,700 emails. Okay. And that does not include the ones that go to spam. These are from, and it doesn't necessarily have to be clients. These are like people who are trying to sell us services, who are trying to sell us products and all these other things, right? So sometimes things can get lost in the mix, unfortunately. And so for us, I said, okay, I want to make things convenient for our client to where everybody has their phone most of the time. I try to keep boundaries with my with my work phone, but I said I'm gonna get an app where when they want to upload certain pictures and things for us to make their social media graphics, for us to do these ads, they can do it right from their phone. And so we created that to be easy for them, right? People love convenience. Like I tell people, that's the reason why people love DoorDash, Instacart. People can say, oh, you're lazy. No, it's a simple fact. I don't have to leave the house. I can still be doing my work and get my groceries delivered. People pay for convenience. People want things to be easier for them. So I always tell people, if you're an e-commerce brand, make it easy for people to spend money with you. There is no reason why I should have to go and get my credit card out of my wallet because you don't accept PayPal or you don't accept Apple Pay or you don't accept Google Pay or any of the other ones that are right on my phone. Looking to see, leveraging that data. If you see where most of the people are purchasing from the phone, you need to have Apple Pay and Google Pay available for them to easily check out. Not taking people through hoops. Like I've seen sometimes where people use like these appointment setting systems where it forces you to do like an extremely long registration just for me to set an appointment for a simple service that may be $15, but it took me 10 minutes to get registered in your system. Those type of things. Now, of course, if it's a little different, like for us, we ask you a few little preliminary questions when you come to us, only because we want to get to know your business before our initial call, which is good for our clients because we're learning about your business before then, but we shouldn't have to do that in order to give you $15 for an eyebrow wax or whatever the case may be. So just making sure that it's easy for people to spend money with you. It's easy for them to find out information. There are so many people where I will see them on Facebook and Instagram, and they don't make it easy for people to do business with them. They don't have any links available. They say, oh, just DM me. And then you don't respond to DMs, things like that. There are just so many different ways out there. Looking at it from a customer, I always tell people a customer experience should be number one. So thinking about how your customer looks at something, I've had a client who he basically sells to people in his city and he has a coffee product, right? And I said, hey, have you ever thought about, like one of the days that you're off or maybe doing like same day delivery? And he was like, I never thought about that. And he said, well, I'm going to try it out. He literally tried it out and got like 40 orders.
Wow.
And he just went around delivering them on his off day, like that same day. He was like, we have same day delivery depending on where your zip code and where you're located. But that was one of those things of where thinking outside of the box, making it convenient to people, because I was asking him, I'm like, hold on, why are you setting up packaging orders? I'm like, so how much do you pay right now in shipping, right? We did the math. How much he's paying for shipping, his time to go to the shipping, to get things dropped off, and all these other things, prepping the prepping all these orders? Because you, again, think about time for yourself. And he was like, I didn't think about it like that. I said, yeah. So now you can go and deliver these orders yourself if they want same day delivery. And he literally just told people the price and they went and they paid it. You know, making sure if you do have like a product, making sure you're on as many selling channels as possible. So many people, they will say, I don't have the time to do it. And I'm like, you're missing out on money because people have to try to find your website, or then you're looking for their website may be down. And so then you're like, well, how do I order? Oh, just DM me. No, we don't do that. Make things easy for people to find you and make it easy for them to spend money with you and to become a customer and for you to give them that ultimate customer experience.
Love it. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And we see that consistently across industries. Ease of adoption really does make a huge difference, especially for customers, to not just pay and use the product or service once, but to continue coming back and, be a loyal customer in that respect. And so that's so key. And something we were talking about a little bit earlier, is just the importance of like building a network of support and filling those gaps with like, delegating tasks out to the right kind of people. And so I think that's so core to kind of, balancing your long-term vision with short-term goals when executing a marketing pivot like this. So just to dive a little bit deeper, any other key considerations or insights around, just balancing that long-term vision that entrepreneurs have for their business with those short-term goals that feel so urgent, for the success and sustainability of the business?
Um, I think we have to learn to teach ourselves patience, but to also be able to say no. And so people always ask me what I mean when I say that. And I'm like, well, let's break it down a little bit. Like for me, if it's something I don't like doing, I am not going to do it. I'm going to delegate that, right? And I have to understand that. And people try to say, well, okay, sometimes suffering now equals better later. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm like, let's not do that, right? Because we tend to get, again, I'm a type A personality. I think about long term. Yeah, I may need 20 people for a certain project right now, right? But how are these 20 people going to see my vision to help me grow long term? Like for some people, you may know, hey, this person that you hired, they're only going to be here for 3 months, right? But then once they leave, you have to find somebody to replace them. And so you're back in the same situation. So tell people with every task that you do, think about how it affects you not only right now, it may be good, but how does it affect you in the next year? How does it affect you in the next 3 years, 5 years with every decision that you make now? I always tell people to think about, I know a lot of people say, well, I have to find somebody I can trust. I have to find somebody I can trust, but you have to understand that, again, finding those people that understand your vision, finding those people that understand what you're doing and can basically have the same values as you. It's just like even when we're looking at like certain bids, there are some companies where they will say, hey, if you've worked on these type of projects or with these type of people, we don't want to work with you because you don't understand the vision, especially when you're working with nonprofits. They may say, well, hey, if we're a nonprofit organization that's for women, we don't want to work with certain people who have put things on their social media saying they hate women. Those are some of the things to think about. Short-term impact and long-term too. So just aligning your values and understanding that everything that you do, just be natural with it. If it's something you don't like doing, say no to it. Find a person that can do it for you so that you can focus long term on your long term goals. And I always tell people to don't have people around you who are dream killers. There are so many times when you can have something, and I literally have talked when I am on social media. I've kind of talked about dream killers where you share something with somebody, and because they have a small mind and they can't see your goal, they decide they want to try to kill your dream, even though you've planned it out, you know how it's going to work, and you know how to do these things. And we get so discouraged, especially as women, to go for bigger, go for more, go for better. And don't be afraid to do that, of knowing, hey, I may be like for us, we've invested a lot in this new office that's going to have resources for entrepreneurs, even if they aren't our clients. And some people may say, well, why are you pouring all your money back into your business? I'm like, because I can see what's going to happen long term. I know how it's going to help build other millionaires, and that's my goal.
Yeah, amazing. And so for entrepreneurs who are maybe, coming to the end of, or, kind of their campaign of, rebranding their marketing strategy or however, they kind of have called it. What are some of the key metrics that entrepreneurs should focus on to measure the success of their marketing pivot and just any other insights that entrepreneurs can consider to ensure continued adaptation and responsiveness to market trends and changes?
Yeah. So for market trends and changes, I always say, like for me, I'm a big person and I tell people I continuously go to conferences for my industry. Now, I don't mean like, conferences that, another person necessarily hosts. I mean, I'm going to classes where Google is talking about machine learning and, data analytics and things like that. I'm going to get those certificates from Microsoft, going to those conferences where we're looking to see what's happening in the future. And people need to do the same for their industry. Some people feel like, oh, I don't like going to school. I tell people the wealthiest people are continuous lifelong learners. And if you are not a continuous lifelong learner, you are doing a disservice to yourself. Some of the things, and what was the first part of the question so I can make sure that
Yeah,
I answer?
yeah, absolutely. Just, some of the metrics and KPIs that entrepreneurs should focus on to show the
So I
success.
would say before starting a campaign, know what your goals are first. A lot of people really like when they say, for example, you may run a paid ad, right? And you say, okay, I'm gonna run a paid ad on Facebook. And you run this paid ad, you're like, okay, but I didn't see nobody signed up. What happened?
Yeah.
You should be able to look. And I always tell people, I'm that person where we use a third party to verify everything because hey, if Facebook has an outage, and people who know me know I'm a big person on, I don't rely on social media. But we've seen where when Facebook goes down or when Instagram goes down, business owners go nuts because they're like, oh my gosh, what if I lose all my customer data? How am I supposed to connect with my customers? And I'm like, why are you depending on another platform? Why
Huh.
don't you have any of this information yourself? Things like that. And so I always tell people you should have those KPIs and those metrics set in advance, right? But then you should also verify it to see there are so many free tools out there. Facebook has like their little internal, tools where you can see like the measurement on this is how many people it saw. And y'all tell people, I'm like, well, if they didn't click it, it doesn't matter. They can say it was going to show up in their timeline, but if the people never scrolled down, they never saw it. So looking at those different metrics to know, like I always look at, okay, what's your return on your investment? If you invested $1,000 in, what did it make you? And not everything is an income producing activity too. So that's something to think about. And a lot of people, everybody wants to think every activity that they do is income producing, and sometimes it's not. And so what ends up happening is that when people don't make money from it, they're like, oh, well, I didn't see any money from it. Or if they feel like, well, I took my time to do something and I didn't get paid from it, or, whatever the case may be. Yeah, but you may have gotten leads from that. How are you looking at these are potential leads for my business that I can help with? So there are just so many different ways that you can measure those KPIs, that ROI, but it's all about knowing what is your goal for that and setting those KPIs in advance. Is it, hey, we want to get 100 people signed up? Okay, that's great. What's your conversion rate when those 100 people get signed up? What's your cost per lead? What's your cost per click? Knowing those things in advance so that then when you look at the back end, you can say, yeah, we met our goal or we didn't. And I always tell people to, especially, I know I saw one of the comments where they said they're a lifelong learner. I'm a big person on, again, like if you all were to see my desk and stuff, you'd be like, okay, I literally keep notebooks of things because things will come to me. I literally will dream about problems with my clients. And I will literally, like, when I say I will dream about problems with my clients and will write it down, I will
Yeah.
wake up and I'll write it down or I'll put it in a note on my phone. And sometimes I have dreams where I work through problems in my dreams. Like if there's an issue like with some code on someone's website, I literally walk through it in a dream. And when I wake up, I'm like, okay, that's what I need to do. And people are
Right.
like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, clearly my brain never shuts off. But
Yeah.
I tell people, know what your intention is up front so that then you aren't surprised on the back end. And then and guess again, going back to don't be afraid to try things new. It may be where you say, hey, we put $1,000 into this and we got back, or even you saying, well, my time per hour is 250 per hour or whatever, right? And you may start to say, okay, well, even though I did something for free or I went to this networking event, I got 10 good leads from that, right? And so I ended up getting an ROI because those people spent money with me, and it was something that was free, but you still spent your time there.
Yeah. No, I think that's really interesting. And entrepreneurs, in the audience may consider shifting their mindset and thinking about the thing, that money isn't always the thing that is gained from various business activities that they may do as a founder. And it doesn't mean that those activities are not worth doing or
Income producing, yeah.
valuable. Yeah, absolutely. So critical. So just to close us out before jumping into a little bit of Q&A, I know you touched on a couple examples throughout, but any, just use cases or real world examples that come to mind of businesses that have successfully executed a marketing pivot and just key lessons that entrepreneurs can learn that maybe, just built off of the conversation we've had.
So I hate, so like, I can nerd out when I'm doing these classes, so I try not to, because some people like, I didn't what was that word that you used? I'm like, I keep forgetting. I would say you have to look at it, and we're going to use like some big examples, right? So Amazon started out as a bookstore, right? But Jeff Bezos, and people can say what they want about him and about what he's created, but he literally looks for where his competition is failing and says, I'm gonna come in for that. You have to look at it like even with his shipping provider. Now Amazon has their own delivery service, because guess what Amazon said? Amazon looked at their service providers and they said, well, if they only have this much of an on-time percentage with
Yeah.
our products, and I know that we can get it there within this many days, hey, we can drop them and we can create our own. And
Yeah.
now Amazon Prime has planes. They have their delivery. You can go and deliver some packages for Amazon if you want to. You see what I'm saying? Those are ways that people have pivoted. And I think that when us as business owners, we look at those big companies, but we think we're unable to do so. Right. But it's again about seeing those gaps. It's about seeing, is this an area of opportunity? It may be where, say, for example, we've seen across the US where there are a lot of restaurants that are closing down, right? Looking at how can we use those restaurants as an example. I have a really great friend who he was one of the people that told Red Lobster endless shrimp is going to be the end of this business. And he was right. Like, we've seen how much money they've lost, right? We've seen where they're like, oh, we're going to have to file bankruptcy. It's about seeing those things and not being afraid to get rid of something in the hope. Because some people think, okay, if I get rid of this low product or whatever, that people are not going to come back. And that's not necessarily true. Like for me, I look at it like Red Lobster should have elevated, because there, for a lot of people, when it's a Red Lobster in that area, it may not be another seafood restaurant in that area. So guess what? Let's elevate this experience. Let's get rid of endless shrimp and let's elevate this for people that love seafood that want to come here to get a fresher option. Things like that. So using some of those big case studies as your example on how you can use them and apply them in your business. Even looking at, maybe it's something that I tell people every few months, and of course at the end of the year, you should be doing a year-end review. Maybe not around the holidays, become January. I know, like for me, we take January off on purpose. That's because guess what? We're going to sit down and we're going to talk about some things. Let's talk about what went right last year. Let's talk about what went wrong. Let's talk about who was the most productive and how we're going to change some things. That may mean where we look at it, and even for business owners, I always tell people, when you hire people, approach it like a corporation. The person who you hire should be bringing you 3 times the revenue, at least, of what you're paying them in salary. Things like that. Look for those cost savings. Look for, hey, I've been paying this much for, I always tell people, and it can be little changes that can make all the difference. Like, I knew I had one client who was like, Oh, I paid, I think in a year they said they were paying like $20,000 just for a company to maintain their website that never touched it.
Oh,
I was like, no, we can use that money for something else. So looking for those different cost savings and, those areas of opportunity, those holes in your business, and not being afraid to say, hey, this is the area where we suck. We need to improve it. We need to find somebody to come in and help me. Like I tell people, I do not do sales. So guess what? I have a person who's coming on that does sales because I am not a salesperson because I feel like it just makes me creepy.
yeah, no, marketing sales, totally different world. So
Yeah.
yes. Awesome, Danielle. This has been such a wonderful conversation. If you had just one key takeaway or piece of wisdom that you wanted to leave with the audience, what would that be?
Be patient with yourself. This is a marathon. It is not a race. Do not, and I always tell people, do not compare yourselves to what you see on social media. A lot of times we will affect our own self-esteem, our own mental health, because we're looking at someone who's just showing us the highlights and they're not showing you what's really going on in their life. So don't think that you're doing something wrong. Don't compare and think that, oh, why are they making it and I'm not, because you have zero idea what they're really doing. So just be patient with yourself, be genuine, be natural, and be you.
Awesome. Love it, Danielle. Thank you so much once again for joining us on behalf of the NASDAQ Center and everyone here today. We are just so thankful that you joined us.
Yeah, most definitely. So I'm going to stay on the call so we can get a couple of questions out. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat room.
Wonderful. I know we had somebody in the Q&A asking about any, resources you may have to recommend, just to learn more on this kind of topic. Any recommendations there?
Okay, can you repeat that? Your phone, it kind of broke up a little bit.
Oh yeah, just any additional resources for entrepreneurs to continue learning and upskilling in this area, specifically around the, case studies that they could learn from. Google is always a good friend. Oh no, she's frozen. All right. Well, if you have any questions in the audience, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll do our best to get those answered for you. And thank you all so much for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you back online with us soon.